All right, guys, we are now doing another chestnut tree update. They have reached the final phase of the year, and that is the nut crop is ready to fall out of the trees. I've already found a few laying on the ground out of one tree, so we have just now started the process, and I'll show you a couple examples of different stages of burrs. But the burrs will change color to more of a brown rotting look, because the burr itself is actually drying up and peeling open, and it will split open and drop nuts out of it. There is a gigantic burr right up there. As big as that guy is, that's like approaching close to softball size. I would say there might be 4 now. It's that big. The rest of these look very promising to have 2 or 3 in them. I don't really see any that even has 1 in it. They're all big on this tree. Pollination looks to be very, very close to 100%, if not 100. Production out of that tree compared to last year has tripled, if not a little more. So that's a good sign that that tree is probably ready to keep increasing and become a major factor down the road. This tree here has some really big burrs as well. Even though the rain has shut off at the worst time around here, the burrs are still looking pretty good. So we have a nice big burr. You can see where it's turning brown. That will crack open here before long and start dropping nuts out of it. Same thing here, and I'll show you better looks to these as I get some that are closer. But look carefully. See how it's split 4 ways? That's fixing to drop nuts. That's how you know those trees are ready to drop. So even if you don't want them to drop, you can come up here and pick them off yourself and eat those nuts, if whatever you want to do with them. But they're more nutrition than white oaks. That's why I am really happy that these trees are starting to get some size to them now. Still got a ways to go. I would say it's going to take another 5 to 10 years to really ramp up the nut production. Of course, once all these trees start producing, that changes things in a hurry. When you have volume of trees, that can make up for young trees until they get older. All right, so let's go through some stages here. And your burrs will probably, look very similar to this guy. So you can see him there. Might want to get one with some better lighting. So yeah, let's try this one here. So really can't tell much has gone on other than the fact they've gotten really big now. The limbs are drooping, and you can kind of see how big we're talking now. And there's a very small indication here that this burr is about to open, but until you see these trees in person, you probably won't recognize it right off the bat. But I've been around these long enough to know when it's getting really close. It's probably within a few days. So there's my neighbor blowing the horn at me. They love to stop and talk to us all the time. Really nice neighbors. They don't deer hunt, which is a bonus. On this end, let me see if I can find one that's kind of in this in-between stage here. Try to find, yeah, let's do this. All right, so if you look very carefully, that burr is no longer perfectly round. If you look in the center, you're probably going to see a little bit of a dark hole right there. That is the beginnings of a burr split. Eventually, you'll see it turn into that, and it becomes way more pronounced. Those nuts are about ready to fall off. Then it progresses to the next stage where you can actually see the nuts sticking out, and then they start falling out after they get past this stage. And these have already come out of the tree. And there's your final stage, nut drop. Just be aware that Dunstan nuts get a lot bigger than this. This tree has not really been a large nut producer. It has on occasions, but I think the rainfall has just shut off at the wrong time. We haven't had a good rain in a while now, and it's too late to do anything with the nuts. So this is the size, I would say, give or take a little bit. That's about the average size nut in this tree. There's other trees that I've gotten here that those nuts are twice that size. So just be aware of that. They get big. This type of chestnut does. Even down here. And of course, now that you can see the grand scope of things here, how many burrs are just in that one limb right there. If my oak trees look like that, I'd be giddy. But there are big burrs all over the place. The only thing I would say is the tree's pollination rate is better than last year's. Originally, I was holding this a little bit lower standard, but after the size that some of these burrs have gotten, I would say this tree has an 85% pollination, maybe 90% pollination this year. That is due to the part the trees are getting bigger and growing closer together. So that is definitely helping the pollination rates here. And let me back up a bit. Just a massive amount of nuts for a tree that size. Really starting to bend some limbs. And don't worry, most of that will bend back up and look normal again, and others it will either snap off or stay permanently bent. So you just have to wait until after the nuts fall off to see what happens. Another tree down here, this is its first year producing. Probably in the neighborhood of 50 to 60% pollination. There's just not a lot of big healthy burrs on it unless you get on the other side of the tree. And it's got one really deformed looking chestnut burr there. That one has a chance to have more than 3 in it. So it's a very odd looking burr. The only reason I'm saying it has a better chance is I had a burr very similar to that last year that was a lot bigger, and it had 6 of them in it. So you can approach more than 3, but it's rare to get above really 4. It's hard to get 4, but 6 is amazing. So can you imagine what would happen if these were 50 foot tall and 35, 40 foot wide chestnuts? How many pounds of nuts would be produced out of these trees? It would be super high. So this one has a very large cluster tucked in right here behind these limbs. Might be able to see it a little better this way. Those are very large, most likely triples. So a good sign. This is this tree's first time producing, and it's off to a good start. None of these trees down here. Oh, I take it back. We have maybe, yeah, I forgot about this guy. Totally slipped my mind. This tree has one little tiny useless burr in it that didn't make anything. Most likely it's shriveled. It's about, I don't know, ping pong ball size. Now here's the other tree I talked about that was going to rival my main producer. Still shows fantastic signs that it wants to do that. It just needs more size to it and limbs. But these burrs are practically useless. See how small that is? Duds, no good. So this tree has a very poor pollination rate on it. Very poor. I would say now if this tree's had some more time, I would say 30 to 35% of that is actually got 1 to 2 nuts in it, if I'm lucky. Very bad pollination. That'll get better with time. And by the way, I am also way behind on putting protectors out. I'll try to do that this week. My work hours have really cut into my time. I'm trying to get my fall blends out. That's more important to me right now. I still got some time before the bucks start really doing some things here. So on this one, he has some very large chestnuts. That tree has always been a big nut producer, and it has again. And I definitely made my decision because of how big the nuts are in this tree. I'm going to leave it, and I'm going to cut the little one down. I know the little one probably looks healthier, but this original piece here is just producing some huge nuts. I'm talking something that's like that, really big. So I'm not going to, I know it's a clone of the other tree and it probably would do the same thing, but I'm not going to risk it. It's just producing too nicely to do that to it. So that pretty much concludes what I've got. We're back up to the midsection of the chestnuts here. None of these here produced. Once I do cut that oak limb down, I'm waiting for whatever nuts are left in there to drop out and the leaves to fall off before I do any cutting. And that will open up a gaping sunlight hole in here and really assist probably about 3 or 4 trees right here just by removing that one limb. All right, guys, so there's the chestnut update video. My main producer is really drooping. I love it when I see that. I know then I got a fantastic nut crop out of that tree, and eventually the others will follow suit. Have a good day.